Okay, and we're going to be sharing the recording afterwards. So you will have another opportunity if you want to be reviewing the recording as we go along. We've got the chat active, and I'll be sharing a feedback form and our LinkedIn profiles in the chat so that you can get hold of us, and we would love to get your feedback so that we can learn more about how to improve what we do and what we do, also learn about what we have done well. We are offering a certificate of attendance for the 6 seminars that we're running each day this week. So if you are interested in receiving that certificate, please ensure that your name on your profile within Zoom is the same ICF name, so that we can actually match you up on the attendance, and that if you can ensure that that's the same name as you want to appear on your certificate, we can make sure that that's all well matched. Please put your questions as we go along into the chat. There's going to be time afterwards where we really want to get into the discussions, so we'll be selecting the questions that are most relevant, but we will, after the event, be contacting you. If we haven't had a chance to respond to your question, we will contact you after the event and answer it directly with you and make sure that we come back. The Human Aspects in Coaching mini course that we have put together for this week is actually thematic insights to our NLP Essentials course. And that is going to be launching online in June in English for the first time. I am joined by the team from that course. So we have Wendy's our keynote speaker, and we're joined by George and Mario from the faculty on that course today. There's a tiny little QR code in the corner of the slide. So if you're interested in joining us in June, please scan that QR code and that will take you to more information around that course. So we're ready to go ahead. I'm going to give a brief introduction around the work that we do, and a little bit around our key people here. So I'm representing Purposeful Innovators. We are a non-profit membership registered in the UK under Companies House, and we are a membership of professionals that are dedicating our lives to human development and social development, as well as environmental and financial sustainability. We are governed by a voluntary board, and we have around 80+ members all over the world who are working together in collaborative strategic teams to bring the latest research and science into education, corporate, and other areas of our society. Wendy is our PI Director of People, and we're joined by George, who is the founder of the Institute for Research and Human Development in Luxembourg, and he heads our education function within PI, and we work on how we can really get up to date latest science in everything that we do. George has been working really hard with researching his own research, but also researching new principles in the programming and the content of the courses that we are offering under PI. My background, I'm a marketer by background, and around 10 years ago moved into coaching and human impact. Really interested in the neuroscience and human impact and how companies can bring in coaching principles and ethics into how they work with their customers. I have the privilege of working with some fantastic people in the work that I do for PI, and also consultancy, ESG consultancy that I lead here. And I'm blessed that people that I have found so inspirational, who are my trainers, like Wendy and George and Mario, are now collaborating on these projects that we are bringing and planning to bring to market over the course of this coming year. A little bit about the Institute. So the International Institute of Research and Human Development is an accredited adult education centre, accredited by the Ministry of Education in Luxembourg and accredited for ISO 9001-2015. It's also accredited as a level 3 training centre by the International Coaching Federation, and delivers professional training in coaching, NLP, leadership management, and Enneagram. We are today joined by our keynote speaker, who is Wendy Shaw. Wendy is an experienced coach, trainer, and facilitator. She's passionate about empowering others and has almost 30 years experience in L&D. She's a certified trainer of mBIT, NLP, timeline therapy, hypnosis, and an experienced executive coach, a member of the ICF. Wendy delivers elective programs for EMBA students around the globe and is also the master trainer for the BNI in UAE and Qatar. And I'm going to now hand over to Wendy.
Thank you so much. Okay, well, I'm super excited to be the first in our 6-week series of seminars this week. And so my topic is going to be goal setting using neural pathways. So what does that mean? If I were to ask you, have you ever set yourself a goal and achieved it? I imagine you're going to put your hand up and say, yeah, done that. But if I were also to ask you, have you ever set yourself a goal and not achieved it? I think a lot of people will put their hands up to that as well. So what is the difference between a goal that you achieve and a goal that you set yourself but didn't achieve? I would think that the goal that you achieved was important to you. So when we talk about setting goals, it's really important to set meaningful goals, goals that are going to help us grow and keep us on a path to improving our own lives and improving our own success. So I'm excited to share with you today what we're going to be looking at. We're going to be looking at SMART Plus goals. So I'm sure many of you have heard about SMART goals. They've been around since 1981, I believe, the SMART formula. But what I've discovered with NLP is we add another word as well. So I'll be sharing those with you. I'll be sharing with you some questions for achievable outcomes. So I've got some questions to share with you to help you think through a goal in much more detail to make sure that goal is totally congruent for you. And then I'll also be sharing as we go through, but at the end also highlight how you are strengthening your neural pathways. So by going through the questions, also making sure your neural pathways are aligned and buzzing, firing in all directions to help support you achieving that goal. So before we begin, Tony Robbins says, setting goals is the first step in turning the invisible into visible. So what does he mean by that? If we just have a thought, that thought, it could be an idea, but if we don't do something with it, then it just disappears because we have so many thoughts every single day. So taking a thought, an idea, something that's important to us that we'd like to achieve, and turning it into a well-defined goal is going to make something that was just an idea into something that becomes part of your reality. So I could share some interesting facts with you about goals, but what I'm going to start off with is what I know to be fact and true for me. In the Alice in Wonderland book, in the stories, the Cheshire Cat says to Alice, Alice is asking which path to take. And the Cheshire Cat says, well, that depends on where you're going. And she says, I don't know. So he then says, well, any path will do. Because if you don't know where you're going, you won't know if you get there. And if by chance you do get there, You won't know that you're there because you didn't know where you were going. So having something to aim for, and I think goals are important for both short-term and long-term. So getting a balance of, long-term goals, and then the short-term as well, those baby steps and mini goals to align with your bigger goals. So let me share with you, if you have any questions as we go through, please feel free to pop it into the chat box. And we will address them either as we go through or a bit later on when we have time for Q&A. So you're probably familiar with the SMART goals, the SMART formula. So specific, measurable, achievable, realistic, and timed or time-bound. So what I discovered when I first explored NLP is to make it even more meaningful, specific goals plus simple. So if I think back to my corporate life before I got into the world of freelance training and doing a lot of different things that I love to do, I remember my KPIs were so long and complicated that they didn't really stick. They were never in my mind. I had to go and look them up. And I always knew when we were getting towards the end of the year, because everybody would suddenly take massive action because they're suddenly refreshing themselves on their KPIs. So goals should be simple enough that they're easily remembered. Specific, focus on what you want is important. If you just say, so if your goal is, I want a new car, well, what kind of car do you want? Ivan Meisner, who's the founder of BNI, he says specific is terrific, because if you focus on what specifically you want and give some details on that, then people know what to look out for you. So if my goal is I want a new car, I go out, I step outside of my home and there are thousands of cars everywhere. But if I were to say I want a sexy red convertible car, then the next time I see a sexy red convertible car, it reminds me of my goal. So this is going to be important in setting your intention. Measurable. How are you going to measure your goal, but also meaningful, making your goal meaningful for you? Because as I asked earlier, if your goal is important to you, if it's meaningful, then you're much more likely to take action and get it. Achievable, so possible to achieve it, but also write it in the present tense. So if you write it as if now, then you're actually writing it from the place of I've already achieved this. This sends different messages into your mind. So this can be really important. We also have realistic. Is your goal realistic? Achievable and realistic can be very similar. I would say here, I actually had an example. I was working with a client, and was his goal realistic? Well, he said to me, Wendy, I want to be a Maastricht millionaire. Now, is it achievable to be a prize draw winner? Yes, it's achievable. But in my model of the world, was it realistic? To me, I didn't feel that I could realistically, as a coach, support that client into achieving a goal which I considered to have a lot of luck behind it. So is it realistic, but also is it responsible? Responsible when we talk about ecological goals. Is it doing good for ourselves, for our partners, for our children, for our families, for others? And is it responsible for the planet? So is it an ecological goal? Is it doing good? Having a goal timed, by when do you want to achieve this? Because if there's no deadline, how are you ever going to get there? And also towards. So towards language is focus on something that you're going to get and achieve, compared to away from language, which is more, I want to get rid of this. So I'd say a great example here, and I hear it a lot, when people say that I want to lose weight. So they're actually focusing on getting rid of something. but what's the end goal? And I've seen this several times when people, they're motivated to lose weight because they wake up in the morning, they look in the mirror, they don't like what they see. And that's painful, and it motivates them to take action. So they start eating healthier. They take themselves off to the gym. They start to lose weight and to feel better about themselves. But because they haven't got an end goal, because they're feeling better about themselves, they start slipping. Oh, that donut looks delicious. So they will have little treats, and then they will slowly fall back into waking up in the morning, looking in the mirror, don't like what I see. So having a towards goal, focus on what you're going to achieve, what you're going to get. So I find working with clients and identifying, okay, yes, you want to lose weight, but what's that going to gain and give you? So it's more about having a healthy lifestyle. That could be a bigger, larger, long-term goal, rather than just losing weight. Also, another example there is about people wanting to earn money, to have money. If they're coming from a place that they never want to be poor, maybe they've experienced that in their earlier life, and they're motivated to have towards money because they don't want to be poor. So when they get into that space where they are comfortable, then they start blowing money left, right, and center. They spend it all and end up losing everything. So there's some interesting stories about lottery winners, you know, how they don't manage to keep hold of that money, or it just becomes frivoled away and they end up poor again because they don't know what to do with that money to keep them into financial stability in their life. So these are the SMART goals, SMART plus goals. So specific plus simple, measurable plus meaningful, achievable plus as if now, realistic plus responsible, and timed plus towards. So sitting with a client and helping them get really clear on what their goals are is key when it comes to coaching. So what I'd like to share with you is a set of questions. So if you're familiar with NLP, you'll know that we have meta model questions which dig down into more details. Questioning for achievable outcomes starts off with making sure it's stated in the positive. So by asking the question, what specifically do you want? So here, just a reminder of those SMART plus goals. And making sure that as a coach, we understand what our client wants, because if we don't understand it, do they understand it? You know, is it simple enough for them to be clear on what exactly they're wanting to achieve? Okay, so once you've got their goal clear in terms of specific, you want to ask, where are you now in relation to the outcome? So if you're familiar with the GROW model, which we use in coaching, we identify the goal and then we identify the reality. So where are they now? And then that can clarify where they are at the beginning. Now they've set their end goal in terms of what they need to achieve. Next, we look at specifying their outcome. So what will you see? What will you hear? What will you feel when you've achieved this? So this is an interesting one, because what we're doing here, we are associating our client into how they are going to see, hear, and feel once they have achieved this. So we're future pacing and getting them to get into experiencing what it will be like to achieve that outcome. So, and here a top tip, I usually break these down into individual questions, because I know I've asked, what will you see, hear, feel, etc. when you've achieved this? And it's a multiple question, so they don't always get to try all of them on. So asking those 3 questions, or asking them, breaking them down to really get them to experience and associate into what it feels like to have achieved those goals. Next, how will you know when you've achieved this? So this is really getting their evidence procedure. So what has to happen for them to know that they've achieved this? Now, if we think about maybe the goal is going on holiday. So what's the last step of knowing that you're on holiday? For some people, it could be, I've booked my flight ticket, I'm ready to go. For other people, it could be, I'm at the airport, I'm getting on the plane. For somebody else, it could be, I'm landing, getting off the plane. It could be checking the hotel room. It could be lying on the beach with their cocktail in their hand. For somebody else, it might even be they've had their holiday and now they've come back and they're sharing photos of their holiday with their friends. So how will you know when you've achieved this? What's the last step to know that you've achieved your goal? Number 5, is it congruently desirable? So checking in, what will this outcome get for you or allow you to do? So what are you going to gain from this? What is it going to help you to do? Next one, is it self-initiated and self-maintained? So asking, is it only for you? So is the goal only for you? What about other people who are going to be impacted? Is it going to be self-motivating for you to take action? I know I've worked with some people and having goals where I'm doing it to please my mum, or I'm doing it because somebody else wants me to do this. If it's not self-initiated, how are you going to maintain something if it's not important to you? So this is really worth exploring. Is it appropriately contextualized? So where do you want this? When do you want this? How and with whom do you want to achieve this? So you're making sure you're putting it into the context of getting them to think about where, when, how are they going to do this and with whom? Who else is going to be involved? Who else is going to support them in achieving this? And then number 8, checking the resources. So what resources are needed? What do you have now and what do you need to get your outcome? Have you ever had or done this before? So thinking back to your previous experience, previous goals, what did you do then? What worked? If not, do you know anyone who has? We know that NLP is based on modeling. So if you know somebody that's achieved something that you want to do, then to model them, to study them, to ask them a few questions, or how did they achieve their goal? Can you act as if you've already achieved this? So is it possible that they could act as if they've got it now? All great questions to check their resources. Slide's not moving, bear with me. And number 9, is it ecological? So for what purpose do you want this? What will you gain or lose if you have it? And also, is there any part of you that's not fully supporting you achieving this goal? Now, remember one coaching session working with my client. We got to this, so this is number 9. We've spent 30 minutes so far going through. And when I asked the question, for what purpose do you want this? His response was, to make my mum proud. He's like, oh, that's interesting. And as he thought about that, I mean, his goal was to open up a restaurant. So invest his life savings so far into setting up his own business. But when we had got to this question and really started digging down and exploring, it wasn't really what he wanted. So in his mind, he thought that this was his goal. But when we explored the purpose, why he wanted this, it was to make his mum proud. Once he identified that, he realized that his mum's going to be proud no matter what he does. So wouldn't he be better off doing something that he was really passionate about? So it was an amazing session, and I'm sure he got massive value from it. So this third question here, is there any part of you that's not fully supporting you in achieving this goal? do you totally believe it's possible? Do you have any limiting beliefs that are coming up? Because these could all be sabotaging you achieving these goals. And then Cartesian logic. So these are 4 powerful questions. And by checking the 4 quadrants, and these questions are really good for turning ideas into logic and reasoning. So what will happen when you get this goal? What won't happen when you get it? What will happen if you don't get it? And what won't happen if you don't get it? Now, if you're confused, confusion is a good thing. So some of these questions don't even make sense at the conscious level. They're more for your unconscious mind to process. So as long as you're thinking through the 4 quadrants, what's going to happen when you get it? What's not going to happen when you get it? What will happen if you don't get it? So if you don't achieve it, and what won't happen if you don't get it? So, you know, the one thing we know for sure, the world will not end. Okay, so by going through these questions for achievable outcomes, we're thinking through our goals in multiple different ways. And we know that neurons that fire together get wired together. So cephalic brain, our head brain, is a whole process of neurons that spark up and create and fire together when we have a thought. So when we have a thought, if we create stronger pathways by repeating that thought and exploring it in more detail, then that pathway becomes stronger and those neurons get wired together. What you're also doing, you're setting your reticular activating system. So this is getting specific and clear on identifying what exactly you want. Because by focusing on what you want, you are setting up your, this part of your hippocampus that is one of your key filters of information. So your reticular activating system brings it into your awareness and brings in all of the things that are going to help you in terms of achieving your goals. Okay, we've asked many questions. We're reinforcing your goal. We've explored it. We've future-paced it. We've got you to associate into your goal. We've got you to think through your resources, the ecology of your goal, and visual representations as well. So imagining, picturing that goal. If any of you use vision boards as well, having a visual. I've had clients who will write out their goal and they will put it on their notice board or somewhere they can see it on a daily basis, because this is again strengthening that neural connection and keeping it top of mind. If you write a goal or you think about a goal, it makes sense, it's important to you, but then you never think about it. You've got no triggers or no stimulus to reconnect with those goals. If you don't use it, you're going to lose it. So this is really useful in terms of reinforcing your goals as you go through. Okay, so in NLP, we talk about 3 keys to success. Number 1 is to focus on what you want. So going through making your goals SMART plus, also going through those questionings for achievable outcomes will give you a lot of clarity in terms of what you want. Is that it? No. Once you know what you want, you need to take action. You need to do something. To have a goal and then to not move or to not take action or to not talk about your goal or to not take a single step towards achieving your goal is not going to be useful. So you also need to consider feedback and flexibility. So notice what results you're getting. If the results you're getting, the feedback that you're getting, is it moving you towards what you want? If it's not, you need to tap into your flexibility in terms of doing something different to make sure that you're moving towards your goal. So having that feedback loop is going to be key. Okay, so let's open up to some questions. So I'm not aware of what's happening in the chat. So let me call on my panel. So Rania, George.
So we actually have a fantastic question for you, Wendy. And it's from Aditya, and she's asking, what is your take on gut feel in NLP?
Oh, how long have you got? Okay, I would say gut feel, that's tapping into your intuition. Yes, when something feels right, trust your gut, listen to your gut. There's a lot of research now that identifies that the gut has an intelligence all of its own. And I've explored that in a lot of depth, and I teach another modality called mBraining. So if you're interested to know more about that, so I've actually got a webinar tonight. I'm happy to share that with you. So yes, gut feeling, pay attention to it. What is your gut telling you? Because your gut tells you when to move forwards, but also when to move away. So it's about safety and protection. If something's telling you something's not quite right, listen to your gut. So yes, for sure, pay attention. Next question.
So please post up your questions onto the chat. We've had some fantastic comments and not many questions. So I'm going to hand over. I'll ask George and Mario about input on goal setting.
I'm going fast. Good morning, everybody. Thank you, Rania, for this exciting event that you organized today. I would like to add to this exceptional presentation of Wendy a couple of things is from my private professional experience. It's when you do a goal setting, be careful to be specific. I come out from a certification yesterday, ICF certification. This is a major difficulty to make a real specific goal. And if you don't achieve it, you are going to go around the subject. Don't be afraid with a nice way to come back and reframe or reformulate your goal. Another point it's quite difficult and challenging is the goal depend upon your coaching? This is a good question, and be careful because a lot of time coaches they don't have the power of their goal, of their objectives, and there is not a problem about that. You just ask them now that they know what is the problems, how they are going to reframe their goal. This is also important. Finally, from my academic experience, when we accompany children, respect their dreams, because it's good to have realistic goals, but not with our model of the world, but with their model of the world. Anyway, dreams, if they don't achieve their dreams, they move at least. This is important also. And finally, for the intuition, a lot of time I put in context the intuition of the African students they have in the university, because they have a powerful intuition, and with the European ones they just innovate. They don't use intuition. It's a powerful tool. Listen to your intuition, but be careful, because as ICF coaches we have to ask questions and not to make comments, criticism and advice. That means transform your intuition to a kind question to your coaching. This is for me. Thank you, and I pass to Mario.
Yes, hello everybody. I'm very excited and happy to share this moment with you all, and thank you, Wendy, for the fantastic presentation. Simple, clear, effective, as a good coach as you are. So thank you very much. What about the goal set and my experience coaching? maybe I can share a philosophical point of view about, because the technical one was very good explained by Wendy and complete by George. For me, it's like a specific goal is a new reality that exists, that already exists in the future. So for me, when I ask a client for the goal setting side of the session, is about the possibility to see this existing future reality and taken to the present. So specific questions, realistic questions, concrete questions make the future happen today. And it's like you want to make a journey and you don't know where you want to go. And try to get into a travel agency and say, okay, I would like to make a trip to Europe. And I think the person attending you can ask, where in Europe? I don't know, Europe. Okay, but Europe is big. And you can choose a specific point in Europe. Okay, France. Yeah, great, but France is big. Where you want to go in France? Maybe, I don't know, Paris. Okay, it's better because Paris, you can go to Paris by train, you can go to Paris by plane or by car if you're in Europe. So the more this future is concrete, the more you have possibilities to take it, to catch it, so to achieve your goal. And I position myself with the client as this future is already concrete, was already concrete. And it's interesting as a starting point to question clients as if the future is already the present. So I try to do it, and for a lot of clients it's very funny to do, because it's like a time trip, you know, time journey, exploring the future today, and imagine that the future is already existing. And sometimes ago I was thinking that it was just a fantasy, and after I discovered that quantum physics talk about it. So multiple timelines with multiple realities that exist at the same time. And when you have a specific, measurable, attractive, realistic, and time-oriented, and all the plus that Wendy was learning us today, you have a lot of chances to realize this present future of another timeline.
Fantastic, Mario. Wendy, I've got a couple of questions for you that have come up.
Is this from Samantha?
We've got Samantha, Natalia, and Laura, and a two-part with Natalia and Laura, if that would be okay. So the first part that Natalia has asked is, when a client wants to try a new area or direction of work and business, how can you help set specific goal if the person knows little about that area or direction?
I would say the first goal would be to learn as much as you possibly can about that area or direction. So that would be the initial goal, is to gather information to be able to make a decision or to set a goal into moving into that area. I think that would be my first response. Let me check with George and Mario. Anything to add there?
If I take over, if we take the ICF methodology, in fact, it's explorative coaching. This is quite a challenging one, because I had the chance to pass through my PCC accreditation on that. That means you are allowed to give a lot of information to your customer, but you have to stay objective. You have to give a lot of choice, because, as I say often, one it's an obligation. 2, it's dilemma. You can, and over 3, it's a choice. And just be careful to not advise, because advice is against the ethical regulation of ICF. This is for my part.
Yeah, I can add a funny metaphor, if you allow me. I understand that somebody could love to change something in his life, and it's a good thing to change, because we change in every time, consciously or not. But the little funny metaphor is, I would like to fall in love of one woman, but I don't know her. It's very difficult to get married with. So take a lot of information about the area you want to get in. And the more you know this area, and more specific will be the goal setting, and so the possibility to realize, to concretely realize something interesting and new and challenging, and to make your life better. So if the area is unknown, I think that the first goal is to know it, as Wendy said, and to know it well. And of course, we can give solutions. We just can ask questions to our clients on the ICF universe, but we can ask realistic questions. And so it is possible in goal setting to just make emerge the element of lack of knowledge of the new area. So ask your client. The client knows what he wants or not, but maybe everything is not clear at the start of the coaching. So we have to ask. We have to ask, and it is possible to make it clear with good questions, following the model proposed by Wendy today, goal setting. I think it's possible to make it clearer, and so do it.
Thank you. We have a follow-up to that question from Laura, which says, following on from Natalia's question above, how can we use this methodology to best help a client who has the gut feeling they want to move away from one career area, but is unclear on the direction they want to go in?
Okay. Yeah, I think exploring what is it that they're wanting to move away from in terms of their current career. If they've got a gut feeling, something not congruent with them. So what is it that they dislike about their current role that they want, and identifying what they do like in their current role, and then exploring other areas where they can focus more on that. So I get maybe some exploring around, where are they coming from? So what is it that they want to move away from, and then making sure that they get that clarity on what they value in their current role, so they take that with them. That would be my top tip.
Fantastic. George and Mario, would you like to add?
Yes. What I have to ask, first of all, it's a long process, the career orientation, because I do that at the university with the students. It's an exciting moment for me. There is a methodology. If there is demand about that, Rania, you can organize. I will share with people what is the process of intersect motivation about career. And but just to summarize, in this methodology, you can take into consideration what is the beta programs of taking the decision to move on. We can consider also what is the motivation that comes out from the Enneagram methodology. And finally, we have also the intersect motivation is another methodology. All that together, we can apply it on the logical levels of deals. This is just to define what is the sense of the life of the people, and going down to the identity, which in our case, it's the role that they want to do, to promote this world, this vision that they have, and find out what is the values, what is the competencies. And the competencies, be careful, there is 3 types of competencies. This is the competencies that people they have, the competence that they have, the people they have to learn. And there is the competencies that are not visible. What I mean by that, they think that they have, and we cannot see them. That means we have to accompany them to make them clear and visible, or they think that they have and they don't have them, and we have to accompany them to understand that and decide what kind of competencies are missing in their inspiration. This is for my part. Thank you.
It's interesting because I see a question for me in the chat about the interaction with virtual world and the interest of human in. The question is, does the human relationship is always interesting in culture? And I feel that the next step from the statement of Wendy and Georgios. So what is the emotional impact on a coaching relationship? It would be interesting to ask ourselves about it. Because, of course, artificial intelligence is very good, ChatGPT is very good, and everything's very good. But we know what we can experience each day in our coaching daily work, that our clients have powerful emotional impact from, for example, the goal setting. If a goal is very good set, it has an emotional impact, an important emotional impact. And we share our emotions with the clients because we are empathic in the relationship. So I don't think that ChatGPT has the same emotional impact that Georgios or Wendy or me or Rania or every one of you, at least in this lesson. It would be interesting to ask ChatGPT about it, to know what it thinks. But its because it's not a person, its own emotional impact. So it's just another, I put another brick in the wall, as Pink Floyd says.
Brilliant. So we've got around 5 more minutes to the end of this seminar. If you've got other questions, there was one by Samantha. Using the GROW model, what can you do to attain the goal quickly, as it can take a long time? And if anyone else has got any other questions, please pop them in the chat now. Back over to you, Wendy.
That's an interesting one. A long time according to whom? A friend of mine, she shared with me the other day that she's just come back from the UK, and she decided that she was going to, what she wanted to do was to become a Pilates trainer. She's been doing Pilates for years and years, and she decided that, okay, that's going to be one of her goals. Within 48 hours, she had found a course, explored the trainer, the coach, saw the options, the location, the dates, everything worked for her. She booked and paid for it. The course isn't until September or later on in the year, but that's how quickly, and she calls it, she's manifested it really quickly. I said, okay, interesting. I said, but once you'd set that goal, what action did you take? She said, well, I got on the internet and I researched. So she started taking immediate action. So if you set a goal and then, it could be you plant a seed, but then you just sit back and wait. So yeah, you've got to start taking action. What can you do today that's going to move you towards your goal? So is it you need to do some research? Is it there's interesting discussions about whether you should share your goals or not. I believe that yes, because if you share your goals, then you're more likely to connect with people who can help you in achieving them. One of my own examples, several years ago, I wanted a 2-bedroom apartment in a specific location, and that's what I wanted. And I was talking to another girl on the course, and she said, oh, well, I live there, Wendy. Come around at the end of the day and I'll show you around my apartment. And I remember saying, I want one just the same as hers. So of course you have to take action. So you have to do this and you have to do that. You have to do some research. You have to talk to people. You have to find out information. So yeah, I think this is why it's important that it is self-initiated and self-maintained. So, you know, people are taking action because they're motivated to move forwards. Yeah, those are my tips. Guys, anything to add there?
I take the hand.
Yeah, go on.
Okay. Yeah. In my experience with judges, I think judges will agree this point of view. In our educational experience, when we educate coaches, we ask to make the goal setting in 10 minutes maximum. And it is really possible to do it, because the G of the grow is not the exploration part of the grow, is the goal setting part. Then we have the R, the exploration, the reality of the client. And that is another lapse of time for the R. But the goal can be set in 10 minutes. Questioning with the same question that Wendy proposed, and listening to the question, listening to the answers, reformulating answers, and going forward. So I'm convinced it is possible to have, because I saw a question about 45 coaching session, 45 minutes coaching sessions. It is possible to do it in 10 minutes, really, and seriously, and achieve goal setting. So maybe it's possible to try to take another approach to the G section, the G lapse of the session in a shorter time. And in NLP, we know that the brain works well in 7 minutes. So 7 minutes is enough to work well. So try to play this game, to have a well set goal in 10 minutes, and try to experience what can happen in the rest of the session.
Hey.
Very quickly concerning ICF, because you're ICF coaches, if you prepare your exam, just prepare your session that you are going to record before. That allows you to know well the context, the people knows what they have as a subtext, and to explore also the question of the customer. It's possible to do in 10 minutes, it's possible. Don't forget 4 points for ICF. What you want to talk with me during the session, what is the result by the end of the session, what is the indicators that show you that you got this result, and what you will change this goal in your life, the state, in fact. That's all. In real life, there is no time. If you keep going with a human being, you have to adapt to the human being, and also think about the dynamic that you bring to the human being. Don't attach your time. Time is nothing for human beings. Thank you for myself.
Thank you very much. Wendy, is there any final words you'd like to add before we close?
I I'd say just, I like that saying that watch your thoughts because they become words. Watch your words because they become your actions, they become your habits become your character, and your character becomes your destiny. So I think going back to the importance of be careful what you're thinking about. If something's truly important to you, focus on what you want and take some actions, because those actions will turn into habits and help you move into the character and destiny that you want. So that's for me.
Absolutely fantastic. Thank you so much. And thank you, Wendy, George and Mario today. Thank you very much to our lovely ICF coaches for joining us today. It's fantastic to see such a high turnout. If you're registered for the 6 seminars, then we will be seeing you same time, same place tomorrow. Otherwise, please follow us on, I've put our LinkedIn, so you can follow us on LinkedIn. Please let us know your feedback. You also have my email address, so please keep in touch. And we'll respond to the couple of questions that have come through in the last couple of minutes. Okay, thank you very much, everyone. Take care.
Thank you for sharing the moment. Bye.